Thank you very much, Ron. It's great to be here. I want to thank everyone for coming out today. Eric Alexander, who does a great job as your executive director. I want to welcome my friend and someone we always cross party lines to work together for the good of his county, Ed Mangano. Your county executive is here. State Senator Martins is here, and State Senator Fuschillo, a member of the Chuck Club. Where is he? We're both Chucks. Our keynote speaker, John Norquist, who was president and CEO of the Congress for New Urbanism and was, I think, the tallest mayor in Milwaukee's history. So I'm glad to be here. First, I want to start by wishing everybody a happy Thanksgiving. I hope God gives you and your families a beautiful one and you're together. And you know I always like to tell a story. So this is my Thanksgiving story. I was born on Thanksgiving Day, which was very nice. And it was in the old days. And my father took my mother into the hospital. We lived in Brooklyn, but our doctor was at French Hospital, which is now defunct. It was a hospital run by a French order of Catholic sisters, and it was a very fine hospital. It closed, but it was on 7th Avenue and 31st Street. I'm telling you that for a reason you'll understand in a minute. And, you know, those were the days. It wasn't, the birthing was not like it is now. You know, it wasn't touchy-feely with the husband in the delivery room and helping and saying push and all that business. The men would go downstairs, smoke cigars, pace the floor, and wait to get notified whether it was a boy or a girl. But my father, being the sort of wandering, adventurous soul that he was, realized 7th Avenue and 31st Street. He drove my mother into the hospital about 8 a.m. They got there at about 8 a.m. And about an hour later, he realized, oh, it's the Thanksgiving Day parade at Macy's. So he wandered out to the parade, stayed there for 3 hours, and then he met two high school buddies. And they said, let's go into the local pub to sort of celebrate the anticipated wonderful event. And he showed up at the hospital at 4. I had been born at 11. That was the first fight. The first big fight my mother and father had, but praise God, they celebrated. He's 88, she's 83. They celebrated their 61st anniversary a few months ago. So it was overall a good Thanksgiving. Anyway, it's great to be here. And I just want to salute the work that you all do. The bottom line is that you have a vision for the future of Long Island and for good living on Long Island, which is so vital to the future of this great community of almost 3 million people. And so I'd like to discuss a couple of things that I care about and I've been working on that I know you do too. And most important is infrastructure. The bottom line is very simple. You know, we do have a big deficit, and it's a serious problem, and we have to deal with it. There is no question about it. I believe that, you know, our government is sort of like a blindfolded person walking towards a cliff. And if we keep walking in that direction, we're going to fall off. Now, we may be 50 yards away, we may be 500 yards away, we may be 5 miles away, but no one can dispute if we keep walking in this direction and don't change things, we will fall off that fiscal cliff and never get it back. So we must reduce the deficit, but there are certain areas, there's lots, the federal government is huge and enormous. And there are certain areas where if we cut them, we're going to eat our seed corn. And we will never grow and never prosper. And the 3 areas that I would outline, all important to Long Island, but only one I'll touch on today, are education. If we don't have the best education system in the world, thank God here it's excellent, we will go down the drain. The second is fundamental scientific research, which the federal government has always invested in, of great importance here on Long Island. when you talk about places like Brookhaven and Stony Brook and LIJ and Cold Spring Harbor and Hofstra. And the third is infrastructure. We will not grow. We will not create new jobs. We will not have the future we need if we cut infrastructure. And whether your ideology be left or right or center, I hope you'll agree that investing in infrastructure has been a fundamental function of the federal government and of government. In the federal government, you know who started the federal involvement in infrastructure? It wasn't a Democrat, it wasn't a Republican. It was a Whig, Henry Clay. And his idea is the federal government should build roads across the Appalachians and develop what was then the far west, Kentucky. And we've been doing it ever since. The investments lead to jobs, and good paying jobs. And they strengthen the middle class, and they are vital. And right now, as you know, we have tremendous infrastructure needs and tremendous infrastructure unemployment. In our construction trades, electricians, plumbers, laborers, unemployment is up to 35% here on Long Island and in the New York metropolitan area, and we are doing better than most areas. And so, at the same time, we have tremendous needs. Here on Long Island, our water and sewer systems were built mostly right after World War II, and they need to be updated in the older parts of Long Island. Adrian Esposito, applause. That's what it said. You know her, Ron. So do I. She's a good, hard-working person. In our newer areas out in eastern Suffolk County, we can't keep living with septic tanks. So infrastructure is so important. And same with our highways and roads and bridges. In America, 1 out of 4 of our bridges are either structurally deficient or obsolete. 21 bridges here on Long Island fit into that category. And as our weather changes, our infrastructure is subject to more damage and more need for rebuilding, refurbishing, etc. Listen to this. China, our #1 economic competitor, is spending 4 times as much on infrastructure as we are. 4 times. According to a recent survey of 1,400 business leaders in 142 countries, we rank now 24th in infrastructure. We're behind countries like Barbados and Oman. That should be a wake-up call. And even in our air infrastructure, we need to upgrade our airports, places like Islip, MacArthur. We don't have a GPS system. Mongolia has a GPS system. We could increase, it does. Guess where it's made? Syracuse. But we didn't implement it in the United States. So most major countries do. We could allow 1/3 more planes to land and take off if we had the GPS system. We don't. So whether it's water, sewer, transportation, we have to do more. We have to deal with infrastructure. And even though we have a deficit problem, we are hopeful that in Congress we can come up with a bipartisan solution where we put infrastructure still at the top of the list. And a highway bill was recently voted out of the Environment and Public Works Committee with bipartisan support, only 2 negative votes, to do just that. And I am hopeful that once the super committee does its job, that will be the first thing on our agenda when we get back to Congress. There are some who want to cut it, as they want to cut water and sewer. That would be a huge, huge mistake. Here on Long Island, we need these things for jobs, and we need these things to help grow. Look at the problems some of our water and sewer districts face. I've been working with the mayor's hometown. The county executive's hometown. He wishes he was still mayor. It's an easier job. In Bethpage, because there's a plume of toxic waste that could ruin the water supply there. Downtown hubs like Patchogue and Greenport need water and sewer. The Bay Park Sewage Treatment Plant is something we've worked with in Nassau. You need to do this. So that is such an important point, and I know all of you, whether you're in the public or private or nonprofit sectors, see that in terms of importance, and I hope you'll get behind this transportation bill, as well as the call for an infrastructure bank. If we were to have an infrastructure bank, we could create about $300 billion for water, sewer, highways. It would be a public-private partnership. It would be minimal cost to the taxpayers, and it would help us adapt to the 21st century. So the two things you can rally behind for infrastructure, and again, these both have bipartisan support, are the new highway bill that's coming up, as well as an infrastructure bank and water and sewer that we need. Now, next, when I last came here, I was talking about our vision together of a sustainable communities consortium. Because development here on Long Island is best when it's grassroots oriented, when it includes local municipalities, small businesses, civic associations, and peoples whose families have struggled with the same problems for generations. So we partnered together, and with Vision Long Island, we had a great meeting, a federal new partnership for sustainable communities, which brought the federal agencies of HUD, EPA, and DOT to meet with you so we could have coordination in housing, environment, and transportation. I'm happy to tell you we got results. With a $3.5 million grant from HUD's Sustainable Communities Initiative, which we've gotten, we're going to make sure that Long Island can develop smartly in the next decades. And the grant will bring together all these agencies and local officials to plan. And there's not one size fits all. You know, what Shirley may need is different than what Wyandanch may need. And what Glen Cove needs is different than what Hicksville needs. But this is a flexible plan that will focus on housing options, transportation, bringing them together. The Long Island Regional Planning Council, working with Nassau and Suffolk, is going to perform the research, outreach, and public education so we can get things done in that regard. Another thing that's very important that we just got some good news on just in the last couple of days is East Side access. As you know, we still have close to 300,000 people from Long Island who commute into Manhattan. And we also know that there's bottlenecks, overloads, delays, and everything else. And so the idea of East Side access to build a second tunnel under the East River makes eminent sense because of the cutbacks that the MTA was making at the state and local levels. It looked like East Side access, which gets hundreds of millions of dollars of federal money every year, creating tens of thousands of good-paying construction jobs, was going to have to come to a halt. Well, last week, we beat back a proposal in the House that would have ended funding for East Side access. That would have prevented us from doing what we need to do. They wanted to cut that proposal by 47%, but East Side access is preserved. We beat that back. It's a transformative project that is good for Long Island growth, that is good for mass transit, and it will continue. Next, Ronkonkoma Hub. This is an idea, the kind of planning that makes a great deal of sense. The Ronkonkoma Hub has the potential to reshape the most widely used transit center on the LIRR. And it's a classic example of taking transportation hubs and using them for community growth and economic development. It can serve as a model not only for our region, but for our entire country. Do you know how old the Ronkonkoma Railroad stop is? 1889. Long time. And there's a lot of history and generations of commuters who use it. But if you have development done in a smart growth way, built around the hub, it'll create lots of jobs. We had one little anomaly. It's right on the border of Brookhaven and Islip. So we had to bring both governments together. But based on their work and good planning together, we are going to develop that hub, and it'll be a model for smart growth, for jobs, for new residences, and for smart growth that links into transportation. So there is plenty that we can do here. The bottom line is that Long Island is on the cusp. We want to become, we were the first suburb, and now we want to become the first 21st century suburb that families can continue to enjoy in this new and different world. I'm confident that by working on the kinds of issues that I've mentioned, that we will see Long Island remain the powerhouse in the 21st century that it has been in the 20th century. Thanks for your great work. Thank you, Eric, for the great conference you're having. And once again, a happy Thanksgiving to one and all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.